most important storylines. Here we go.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here with you live on Wednesday. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Training camp is in full swing. So many storylines that we didn't see coming. So many storylines that we thought we'd see, but not necessarily in the form that we're seeing them. And then some completely out of the blue. I feel like that's the Arizona Cardinals offseason in a nutshell. And it's fun as hell to talk about. And, I mean, some of these stories are going to go away, some won't, and some will be, in some variation, form, or fashion, held on to by national media members, fans, and local media members alike. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. If this is your first listen, thank you. Hopefully make tomorrow your second. If you've been with me since 2017, thank you all the same. The Arizona Cardinals are nothing short of interesting to talk about. Let's put it that way. And that does not stop with training camp upon us. There are three storylines that I'm going to hit today that should be the most important moving forward into preseason and into the regular 2022 NFL season. First, I want to recap really quickly what we talked about yesterday and the day before surrounding Kyler Murray. So Kyler Murray got his extension, independent study clause, tipped the scales yesterday. And you know what? There's a couple takeaways that I had just in summation for what we've seen just altogether. Like, it's wild. The vast different opinions, the broad spectrum of opinions that people have surrounding Kyler Murray and this dumbass clause that was put in his contract. Okay? What I summed up, 4 bullet points. 1, Kyler needs to watch more film. 2, the clause itself was a power play, kind of like a because I can do it move by Michael Bidwell. Kliff needs to coach Kyler Murray harder, and this will be a non-story in a week or two. I feel like, and drop in the comments if you agree, disagree, let's talk about it. This was 100% a power play by an owner who doesn't really venture off into these waters very often. The Larry Fitzgerald contract he gave a long time ago was the safest contract in history, even though it was a lot of money. But you knew what Larry Fitzgerald was going to do. You knew it, okay? He was a substantiated veteran star at that point, okay? Patrick Peterson contract at the time, great contract. Boom, easy. All-pro, Pro Bowler already, okay? Tyrann Mathieu, not so much. Was a star, gave him too much money, asked for some of it back through a restructure. It was never the same. This and the DeAndre Hopkins, when they traded for him, it was obvious that they were going to have to pay him a lot of money. And they did. The suspension wasn't great. Him with the injury towards the second half of last season wasn't great, but hopefully he'll come back in week 7, be ready to roll this year, and that contract will be worth it. With Kyler Murray, Michael Bidwell especially has never experienced this experience. A young quarterback that was drafted that's worked out because Steve Keim picked the right one. And now a second contract is looming. And Michael Bidwell says, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to give you a lot of cheese, okay? But every single little thing you're going to do that I'm going to want you to do. It's a power play. Should Kyler Murray watch more film? Probably. But this is getting blown out of proportion, making it look like Kyler Murray is lesser than or doesn't do his job properly, when in fact, it's just the next stage in the institution that is the Arizona Cardinals doing things in a way that the rest of the NFL doesn't do. In my opinion, that's what it is. Different faces, different forms, different opinions, but this independent study clause is just the next iteration of the Arizona Cardinals organization doing things like they've won 10 Super Bowls, saying it's my way or the highway, when in fact, Kyler Murray is needed by the Arizona Cardinals much more than vice versa. Going into camp, hopefully this is going to dissipate. Hopefully this will dilute. And all it's going to be is a budding joke like the Sam Darnold, I saw ghosts against New England secondary. when he was interviewed after that game. And hopefully it'll be a more positive spin than what's happened to Sam Darnold since. I couldn't see it going that way. The three biggest storylines going into camp, though, because of that, on the heels of that, riding the jet stream of that, is Kyler Murray. It shouldn't be, but it is. It's the least impactful in the sense that the floor of what Kyler Murray is going to bring is much higher than the other two storylines that I'm going to talk about. With Kyler Murray now comes the, oh, he didn't watch film. Oh, he doesn't care. Oh, he's a bad leader. All of these things. Kyler Murray is not a finished product yet. Does he have his faults? 1,000%. It makes me laugh when people see little things that I put out on Twitter and don't actually watch the podcast to think I am 100% hell-bent on Kyler Murray not doing anything wrong ever. That's not true. So let's look at it this way. Take a seat around the campfire, kids. Let's look at it this way. We are watching the greatest, experiment's the wrong word, social psychology case study that we've seen maybe in the history of the Arizona Cardinals, because the Cardinals have never been in a position that they're in right now. Kyler Murray not only doesn't do things run-of-the-mill like traditional quarterbacks do, because he's not 6'3", he's not 240, he's not a stand-in-the-pocket quarterback. So not only does he play the game different, he's also not this rock-solid rah-rah guy who, even if it's shown to be a leader on the forefront, Aaron Rodgers, maybe that leadership quality isn't the greatest. What Kyler Murray is lacking now is the front offer of, hey, at least I'm going to look like a leader. At least I'm going to look like one for everybody to see. If nothing else, Kyler Murray is him 100% of the time. Better, worse, indifferent. You want a sound clip you're not going to get? You want a blow up that you're not going to get? You want a retort that you're not going to get from this dumb clause that got put into his contract coming out by Ian Rappaport, I think, had it first yesterday? Like, Kyler Murray is going to be Kyler Murray. Take it or leave it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You let stars kind of have a little bit more leeway that, oh, we're going to need you to check in. We're going to need you to check in and time your film study. It's not like he doesn't. The storyline number one for camp now is going to be this self-fulfilling prophecy circus that the front office of the Arizona Cardinals have brought onto themselves. Kyler Murray should watch more film. Kyler Murray will watch more film. This is not like, oh, this has to be in the contract or he's not going to do it. That is on Bidwell. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy that are the Arizona Cardinals when they put themselves in situations like this. It will dissipate, but through camp, it's going to be what people are talking about. That's topic one. I'm going to talk about the next two most important storylines for the Arizona Cardinals going through camp. I mean, the foundation of the 2022 NFL season is going to be predicated upon these two entities that I'm going to discuss in the next two segments. We're going to talk about them next. First, Dave. Dave is as rock solid as you can get. No, not your buddy, Dave. Dave's the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with instant cash. And when it comes to things that Dave can help you with, wedding presents, bills, a couple extra gallons of gas in your tank. If you're like short on cash and you're like, oh no, I have this bill that I forgot I had to pay, Dave Extra Cash can help. Okay? Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up with an Extra Cash account and get up to $500 instantly. There's no interest and no credit check needed, which makes it even greater. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Second segment, Locked On Cardinals. Please subscribe and like the YouTube channel. Leave a review if you want. Had some Baltimore Ravens fans that weren't so happy about me comparing Kyler Murray's elusivity to Lamar Jackson. Just jettisoned the ranking because they don't like when people discuss Lamar Jackson as not being a perfect player top to bottom. They don't like that. So if you want to leave a review, I have a podcast. Cool. That's where you get the podcast, free and available on all platforms, man. Kyler Murray storyline number one. It was going to be anyways, but this is kind of a different wrapping of that present. A little bit more film study, wrapped in film study and dumb contract clauses. The second most important storyline going into training camp. I've talked about this all offseason. Again, if this is your first listen, thank you. I will be talking about this all offseason. I'll be talking about it into the regular season. It's Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins. These young gentlemen are tasked with the middle of the Arizona Cardinals defense. Zaven Collins didn't see the field a whole lot last year. Some people think Vance Joseph doesn't play rookies. I vehemently disagree. Vance Joseph doesn't play people that aren't ready to play. Zaven Collins wasn't ready to play. Jordan Hicks was. We saw flashes from Zaven Collins. Light flashes, quick flashes. The one that I remember, the flashbulb memory that I have, was him having, I think it was one of the first snaps that he took during the preseason, was a tackle for loss. And everybody's like, ooh, baby. Zaven Collins is going to be great. Zaven Collins can still be great. He can still be great. We need to see in training camp, starting with, can he play 80% of the snaps? Because there is no safety net for Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons this season. Isaiah Simmons, I think this is the breakout Isaiah Simmons year for a couple reasons. One, it has to be. Like, there's no safety net. There's no Jordan Hicks. It's going to be interesting to see where the Cardinals move him onto the field. But I feel like we've seen enough from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3 to show that Isaiah Simmons is ready to pop. Make people forget that CeeDee Lamb was available, that Tristan Wirfs was available. Make people believe and understand that Isaiah Simmons was the right choice for the Arizona Cardinals with the 8th overall pick in 2020. He's got the talent. He's got the brains. He's got the smarts. He's got the ability. Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons as an entity in the middle of the field, a second and third year player respectively, that have the weight of this defense on their shoulders for myriad reasons. The pass rush isn't what it's going to be last year. At least we don't think now, unless the rookies can step up. The cornerback room. If Marco Wilson and Byron Murphy can stay healthy, it should be as good as last year, but not, barring injury. Marco Wilson was out for a large chunk of last year. Like, if one of those two guys gets injured, it's going to be difficult for the corners to really step up and have the level of impact that they did last year for the second half of the season predominantly. And then you have Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons in the middle of the field. Like, if both of those guys can really turn into what people think they can, this defense could catapult up the rankings. And then not just for this year, for the future. Like, 2 years from now, you're going to want to have the good problem of, oh man, how are we going to pay both these guys? I know they're a year apart, but it's like, oh, Isaiah Simmons just got $60 million guaranteed. Got to save some for Zaven Collins. You hope that that's the conversation we're having throughout the entirety of the 2022 season. And that's why, for the second most important storyline of training camp, it's them. It's them. There's a lot of set and forget guys, especially on the offense, veterans. James Conner, Rodney Hudson, Zach Ertz, DeAndre Hopkins when he comes back, Hollywood Brown, shelved with a hamstring injury, non-football injury. Not ideal, but it's still super early, so you can't really jump to conclusions about that. AJ Green, the set and forget guys, you don't have to worry about. Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, Byron Murphy in some capacity, J.J. Watt, Marcus Golden, guys like that, you just don't have to worry about in camp. They'll be fine. This is what they do. But there is a potential void in the middle of this defense that, if filled by these young gentlemen with sky's the limit potential, this defense could be a top 12 defense. If not, we're going to be having very uncomfortable conversations. But I think the former, it has a better chance of happening than the latter. And that's why watching closely Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons in training camp of utmost importance. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Training camp is upon us. Preseason games are right around the corner. Like, we're here, baby. We're here. And when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals, a lot of things are still up in the air. Not necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of things, a lot of X factors are still in play. And hopefully we'll start to see a little bit of clarity surrounding many of them in training camp. Final storyline. The timeline is a little bit shorter for these guys to need to perform. It's not necessarily fair, but it's how it is. The rookies, both the third round guys, are the top storyline going into camp because it has to be. Kyler Murray, you know what you're going to get. It's going to be weird. It's going to be more of a circus. Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins, we've seen enough. We've seen them on the field at least. What can the third round rookies do? Because they're going to have to perform on the defensive side of the ball. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, talking about that next. First, Bet Online. BetOnline.net. Fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, man. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league. Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball. I wish Major League Baseball was my favorite sport. Every day. Morning, afternoon, and night for 6 months. Like, imagine if football was played every day, all day, every day. There was 10 games a day. Be absolutely magical. Well, BetOnline is your favorite. If Major League Baseball is your favorite sport, go to BetOnline for all the lines. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting scores and podcasts. They got you covered. Go to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, final segment here, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. If this is your first listen, thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second. If you've been listening for years, thank you for your loyalty, hearing me yell into a microphone every day. It's fun. I love doing it, and thanks for being along with me. Kyler Murray, top storyline. Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins, another important storyline going into camp. Cam Thomas and Majai Sanders may be the most important storyline going into camp. And it seems a little backwards. It seems a little counterintuitive, but I frame it this way. Chandler Jones is gone. Jordan Hicks is gone. Steve Keim has made the decision that they're going to go younger, they're going to go faster, and they're going to go, let's see what happens. Because of the gap in pass rush from last year to this year, even though Chandler Jones didn't have the sack totals, remember, sack totals are one of the most overhyped stat in football. Chandler Jones had to be accounted for. Chandler Jones had to be double teamed. Chandler Jones had to be chipped. Chandler Jones had to be accounted for by opposing offenses and opposing offensive lines. That is now a void that has not been filled this offseason yet. There's still time. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul's still out there. I think Justin Houston's still out there. There's some guys they could bring in, but camp's now. So every second that goes by and they don't sign a pass rusher, it's like, well, we're rolling with this. Cam Thomas, Majai Sanders are going to have to perform, whether it be hand in the dirt or from the edge rush position. It's a Marco Wilson situation from last year. Didn't do a whole lot to the cornerback room, if anything. Marco Wilson came in and pretty much started week 1. Saw some flashes during the preseason. The only downside play I remember from Marco Wilson in the preseason was, I think there was like a 3rd and 25 or something. And they ended up giving up a first down, and he was the closest defender. But Marco Wilson showed flashes last year, then got injured. The Cardinals don't have enough depth on the defensive side of the ball for Cam Thomas and Majai Sanders to not play, if they're capable. If Vance Joseph deems that they're ready to play at the NFL level. Cam Thomas should be. He seemed like more of a steal than Majai Sanders in the 3rd round. Okay. But this isn't like they drafted an edge rusher in the 1st round and he's ready plug and play. That's not what the Cardinals have. So that's why these two rookies, seeing where they are at the NFL level, and you'll only see some from camp. You'll definitely see more in the preseason games when they're playing against 2s and sometimes 1s from opposing teams. But they're on the Marco Wilson track where it's like, hey, you're a 4th round pick. You're going to have to start because the Cardinals don't have the depth. It's the same kind of thing for Cam Thomas and Majai Sanders. And from what we saw, I mean, I've watched some film on both of them. read stories, read reports. I mean, it seems like Cam Thomas is going to be ready to roll. And if that's the case, just like Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons, you look at this team, you're like, oh man, this defense is scary. They're young and they're fast. Because if this works out, 26 and under. This defense is 26 and under from the impact positions of younger guys. 26 and under, which is a dream scenario for any defense for Vance Joseph or whoever is going to be defensive coordinator if things go haywire and he gets posed as a scapegoat. This training camp is imperative to see who's ready to roll and who isn't week one. Preseason, obviously, will be more of a gauge, more of a scope. But going into a month away from, I think, their third preseason game, Kyler Murray under microscope for the circus nature that is now surrounding him. And I think that's with the leak of the contract really made that happen. It will die down, but it's going to be a part of the storyline. It just will be until people get bored and find something else. Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins can be the heartbeat of the Arizona Cardinals defense from 2022 moving forward. And if they are, this defense will be scary. And then the rookies. The rookies are important for 2022. The depth isn't where you want it to be right now on the defensive side of the ball. And those two guys, if they're ready to roll, Cam Thomas especially, this defense could be young, fast, and scary. And that's exactly where you want to be with the offense now taking, the key to the city for the strength of the Arizona Cardinals. When up to this point, since Kyler Murray's been drafted, the defense has been the more stable side of the ball. If the offense can do their part and put up a 27 or 28 burger a game, and this young, fast defense can go through its growing pains, but keep opposing defenses to 23 or 24 points a game, 28 more than 27, Cardinals are going to win a bunch of games this year. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Thanks for being live with me. I appreciate it. If this is your first listen, thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second. It's going to be a lot more training camp conversations, more Kyler Murray, more Kliff, more Steve Keim. It's going to be fun the rest of the week and on through the month of July into August and into week one at home against Kansas City Chiefs. Alex Sanzi.